Yo, what's up, YouTube? It's your boy Galaxy Gaming, and today I got for you a top 10 gateway games list just in time for Christmas, just in time for some fun. So, before we start, of course, gotta talk about some honorable mentions. I got three for you this time. We got Love Letter, Potion Explosion, and Code Names. So go check those out. They're awesome games. They just missed the list. But without further ado, let's get you to my top 10 gateway games. Let's quickly define what a gateway game is. This is a game that's easy to teach, the fun starts fast, and you have a wide target audience. So let's begin. Number 10, Welcome Back to the Dungeon. This is a little card game where it's kind of like that game Chicken, where two cars are driving into each other and like someone's going to chicken out and then they're not going to wreck. It's kind of like that where it's plays 2 to 4 players and every player's got some unique little tiles that give you little bonuses. But the way you play the game is in 2 phases. The first phase, you draw a card, you look at the baddie, and then you're like, okay, and then you put them in the dungeon deck. And then the next person, ooh, is he a strong monster or a weak monster? Maybe you could beat him easily, maybe you can't. But you're bluffing, You're like, ooh, that's easy. Ooh, that's kind of hard. And eventually, you can just say, guys, I passed. I'm out of the round. And when everyone but one person passed, then that person must face the dungeon deck and defeat it. If they beat all the baddies, they'll get a victory point. And if they cannot defeat the baddies because they're hitting you, they're messing you up. If you faint in the dungeon, you go to you flip your character sheet to the other side. You have 2 lives. So if you lose the dungeon twice, you're out of the game. And if you beat the dungeon twice, you win the game. So it's just a neat little game. You can get anyone to play it. You literally can teach it in about a minute, maybe 2 minutes, and get going. So super fun. Highly recommended. That's Welcome Back to the Dungeon. Next up, we got Herbaceous, a little Zen game. So Herbaceous is a set collecting game about herbs. So you got your sage, you got your mint, and your saffron, and you got all these little um herbs. It's really like gardeny feeling, really chill kind of game. And it plays 2 to 4 players. And the way you play is you have your herbs deck. You get a card, and you can decide: do I want to put this in my private garden where only I have access to it, or do I want to put it in the community garden where everyone can get from it? And so, regardless of your first decision, the next card that you don't know what it is yet has to go to the other one. So if I draw something that I'm like, ooh, I really want this, and I don't want anyone else to grab it, that'll go to the private garden, and the next one gets donated to the community garden. And everyone goes around doing that. Well, eventually, you're gonna want to pot the herbs, and there's different ways to pot the herbs. You can have like the most of the same herb. You can have like pairs of herbs, or you can have unique herbs, so like they cannot be identical. And what you want to do is rake a bunch of herbs at a time so you can score better on the multiplier. And there's a couple just like tiny little quirks in there, but that's really the basis of the game. And because the theme is just like herbs and potting herbs, it's really chill. I could get anybody to play this game, I feel like. And it's really neat. You get this tension of like, let's say I notice player two's got, 5 thyme or whatever, and then I draw one. It's like, well, it's not really gonna benefit me too much to put this in my private garden, but if I give them access to it, like they're on their next turn, they're probably gonna get that, 7 of the same kind and max out on the point tracker. So it brings this awesome dimension. I always feel like I wait one turn too long and trying to get like a little bit more, and then someone else collects, and then once they take from that community garden, it's like it resets it, and you're like, oh, my plans. But it's all very light and fun, and I would call this a Zen game actually. So next on the list we got Karuba. Karuba is more of a family weight game. Uh, it's kind of like Bingo, the board game. So, what I mean by that is you have this grid and you're trying to make connections. You got these little explorers on this side of your grid, and you got temples on this side of the grid. And throughout the game, you're going to be drawing a tile that has like different roads. So it could be like a cross section, a U this way, a U that way, like a T section. So all these little kind of intersections, and you're going to be plotting them wherever you want in your little grid to eventually make connections to allow your characters to travel through and get to the temple so you can get that sweet loot. The game is very it's got low complexity, and it's just fun because everyone draws the same tile. So you'll have one person draw a random tile and say 9, and then everyone gets their number 9 and puts it down. So even though everyone's using the same numbers, very quickly, a couple rounds in, everyone's got different routes they're trying out, different things they're doing, and you have the in the game you have the decisions of like, are you going to discard a tile to move your character along the road, and how you're going to balance like different surprises, and how you're going to race to the temple, because depending on the player count, but always the first person to get there gets the biggest treasure, the second person gets the second biggest treasure, and so on. So it could be like 5 points, 3 points, 2 points, something like that. So if I notice that player 3 is already at the blue temple and my blue road is like not even close, maybe I'll just abandon blue and focus on brown or whatever. So there's a cool little tension there where you're still seeing what other people are doing, but it's mostly about your board and your little creation. And then at the end of the game, you just can look back and see, wow, like I connected these roads this way. And even though this is a gateway game, I do feel like there's a lot of depth in it, like high replayability. And it's really the game that made me it's really the game that made me want to start talking about board games on YouTube again. Like, it's that good. So it had to make the list, as my wife reminded me. Karuba. You laughing back there? All right. So the next one is called Sushi Go. Sushi Go is a small drafting card game. So what is a draft? Well, my favorite mechanic, of course. But besides that, drafting is where you have a bunch of cards. Like, let's just say you have 7 cards. You pick the one you want, set it down for yourself, and then you pass the rest to the person on your left. Ooh, the person to your right is gonna pass you because you're on their left some cards. Now there's 6 in here. You grab one, and thank you. Past that, you're gonna take 5, and so forth. So that's drafting. You have some decisions. You take the best one for yourself, and you pass the rest along. And what you're trying to do is make combos with sushi. So there's a light set collection element. So for the tempura, for example, if you have 2 tempura, you're going to score 5 points. If you collect 3 sashimi, you're going to score 10. There's other little ways to score on the sushi, like the maki rolls. The person with the most rolls gets 6 points. The second most gets 3 points. And there's like little breakdowns. But eventually what you're trying to do is make little combos with your sushi with what you're given. Throw in there a couple little special cards that mix things up, and you got yourself a fun game. So this is one that I always used to bust out at family gatherings. It comes in this little tin box about that big, and I used to host family gatherings, and the cousins would be like, "Hey, let's play that sushi game. Let's play that sushi game," and it plays a large number of players, and we would just have fun counting up our points in Sushi Go. So very easy. I just taught you how to play it. Very easy, and just a total hit. That's Sushi Go. Now there's also a Sushi Go party, which is everything Sushi Go is plus more. It's got different ways to score, more sushi. They call it a menu. You get to craft the cards that go in there, and that's definitely, it's Sushi Go plus basically. If you're just getting in to board games, I recommend Sushi Go just because it's not overwhelming at all. And Sushi Go Party is kind of a bigger, it's a big box like this, and you open and you're kind of like, whoa, like what's going on? So that's kind of, I would save that for level two, and I would just start with the basic Sushi Go for new gamers. If you're already kind of into it, Sushi Go Party is totally fine. It's still a gateway game. Number six on our list is Quicks, one of the best dice games of all time. Now, this is a little bit of a sleeper, guys. It's like a little $8 dice game. It looks like too simple, but it's not. It's so fun. So the way you play Quicks is 2 to 4 players, and it's a game where you have 4 different colored dice. So you got your blue, red, green, and yellow, and you have 2 white dice. On your turn, you're gonna roll those dice and see what you get. You're gonna add the 2 white dice and read it out to the table. So let's say on my white dice I had a 2 and a 3. I would say 5. Does anybody want that 5? And then you look on your sheet and you can mark off a 5 if it's convenient for you, if you want to. If not, that's cool. You're not the active player. You don't have to mark stuff off. The active player then has to either um, has to add their white die to a color die, or can mark off that 5 as well and move on. And so the fun of this game is that on the tracks, 2 of the colors are from 2 to 12, so 2, 3, 4 to 12, and the other 2 colors are 12, 11, 10 to 2. So sometimes you want to roll high, sometimes you want to roll low. And what you want to do is you want to mark off as many as you can, so you want to have the numbers together. So if you're going, for example, low to high, you don't want to mark a 2, then a 6, then an 8, because you missed all those points from 3, 4, 5. You want to be patient and kind of pace it. And the game has a really fun, scoring mechanism with the with wanting to score more in the track, as well as the way it closes the game out. And it's really fun because everyone stays engaged. It's kind of we can juxtapose it with Karuba. That's a little bit more solitaire, a little bit more like, ooh, where am I gonna lay my tiles? And you're doing your thing. With Quicks, you're like, 8, oh perfect, I needed that 8, and you're laughing and you're oh, I rolled a red 6, but I already marked the 7 and I can't use that anymore. And everyone's kind of like laughing and goofing about the results, and the table's staying real engaged. And the game's so simple, you could still kind of talk, you could still kind of, you could have your own little vibe going on. And it's, even though I would classify this as a filler game and a gateway game, there's been game nights where I play Quicks like an hour straight, an hour and a half straight, where we're having so much fun. Let's play again. Let's play again. And each game probably takes like 15 minutes. I basically tell you almost all the rules, and I think it's about $8 or something. It's just an awesome little stocking stuffer. So that's Quicks, one of my favorite dice games. Next up, we got King of Tokyo. All right, so King of Tokyo is a kind of a King of the Hill game. If you guys ever played video games, or know the concept of King of the Hill, where the person on the hill is getting the points and they want to stay there the longest to win. So in King of Tokyo, everyone's got a monster, and your monster's got health, and you're trying to get points. And the way you get points, well, you got to be King of the Hill or Queen, and you want to be on the hill. So if you start your turn in Tokyo, you'll naturally get points, and then you're rolling these awesome custom dice, and you do get the Yahtzee mechanic where you can roll, get the ones you don't want, roll, get the ones you don't like. That's your third row, and then it's locked in. And it's so fun because if you're in Tokyo, you get to beat up everyone else. So if you're rolling the claws, the talons, you hit everybody. The con, you cannot heal in Tokyo, and you're trying to stay in there, but you can't heal. And So it'll be someone else's turn. Now, if you're not in Tokyo, what all your hits go towards the person in Tokyo. So you got everyone that's not in Tokyo is kind of temporarily working together to beat up on the person in there so that they get low health and will want to leave. Because if you don't, you can get knocked out of this game. So you're managing your health, you're managing your points because you can if you roll triplets like 2 2 2 show up on the dice, you scored 2 points. So you could be scoring points, you could be healing, you can be hitting, and lastly, you could be gathering energy. You can gather energy cubes to then go to a market and get like power ups for your monsters. And this game has tons of expansions, tons of different monsters. But even just starting with the base box is going to be a lot of fun. Um, this is a quick game, probably 45 minutes. And it's just like, you're hitting your friends, you're getting points, you're laughing, you have these crazy monsters. And I believe this was one of our first three games we ever got. And it's still, I still want to play it. So that's King of Tokyo. Next up on the list, we got Clank. So Clank is got probably one of my other favorite mechanics. Might be a tie between drafting and deck building. So a deck building game is a game where everyone starts with the same 10 cards, and these cards are going to generate you some currency. And with that currency, you're going to be able to buy cards from a market and then add it to your deck, which will then differentiate your deck from the other players. The cool thing about Clank is it takes that um, deck building mechanic and adds a spatial element to where if you get boots, you can then move your character into a dungeon. And in Clank, what you're trying to do is navigate this dungeon to get some sweet loot. And then you want to get out of there. Now, throughout the game, you're going to be making noise or clank. And when the dragon wakes up, the dragon's going to see who's been. So you add all your little clank points into a bag, you mix it up, and then you start drawing dice. Or start drawing little wooden cubes. And if your color comes out, bam, bam, the dragon's hitting you. So if you're clanking too hard, you're the probability of your color coming up is way higher than someone who's like tiptoeing around, not making noise, not taking the clank cards. So you can kind of play it your own way. There's been a couple. I usually clank too hard, and there's been a couple games where I definitely clank too hard. My wife, she's usually the ninja. She's tiptoeing. She's not trying to wake up the dragon. And this game is fun because once you're in there, there's different things you can do. Besides, picking up your artifact and leaving, you can get a book bag to get a second artifact. You can get a key, which will open up different passages in there. You can start getting weapons, which will let you go through passages with monsters where you don't have to take damage for crossing monsters because you can beat them up along the way. And this is just an awesome game. It's a little bit more. It's not heavy at all, but it is kind of reaching the point of almost a medium game, leaving Gateway, but it's still right there. In fact, one of my besties, the first time we busted it out, it was his first time playing it, and he won. Like that's and I've played it a lot. So it's that game where anyone can win. You're having fun, and this one will take almost the hour, I would say. It's got some sweet expansions. We finally got the Mummy's Curse expansion. So that's Clank. All right, we are now in our top three. Let's start with the Resistance or the Resistance Avalon. The Resistance is a social deduction game. So there's been this big craze of Among Us going around. So if you know what that is, this is basically like that, but in a board game fashion. So the way it works in the Resistance is, depending on the amount of players, there's going to be imposters or traitors in the group. And someone's going to be in charge of a squad of this mission, and they'll say, okay, I elect player 2, player 4, and player 5. Go on this mission. Then that person has a pass the mission or a fail the mission. And they're secretly going to put one face down. We're going to mix them all up, and then did we pass the mission? If there's even one failure in there, you did not pass. But if there's all passing, you go, oh, great, okay. Now, can you really trust that result? Because I'm the bad guy. I want you to think I'm good, so I'm just going to throw a good one in there. So maybe you can choose me again. And then later, when there's more people in the party, I might throw a fail. Additionally, if the two traders know who each other are, so if I pick a trader, and a good person, I'm like trying to talk with my eyes, like yo, I'm gonna put the fail, because like if two people put the fail, then oh, you guys basically gave yourselves away, and it just creates this really fun tension. You'll see people kind of act different, even people who are usually not into like games where you gotta bluff and stuff, like still give this game a try. You'll warm up to it and you'll have so much fun. And this just creates chaos and laughter. And similar to Sushi Go, it's the game where at every of my family reunions, people ask, "Hey, let's play the Resistance. Let's play the Resistance," and we're like laughing and having fun, and the groans are like, "What are y'all kids doing over there?" Like we're just having a blast with the Resistance. So the way you win is you're slowly going through the track. So like let's say there's a two-person mission, a three-person mission, a three-person mission, a four-person mission, and then you like will win or whatever. If you get three failed missions along the way, the traders win. But if you can make it all the way, or if you can figure out who the imposters are, you'll win. Now, the resistance Avalon and such. There's different little expansions within. Like different players have power ups, can do different things. The only one we always play with is Merlin at the end of the game. So Merlin is a character who Merlin knows who the imposters are. The imposters do not know who Merlin is, and the imposters know each other. And so at the end of the game, if the imposters lose, if they can figure out who Merlin is, they can still win. And that just adds another level of complexity of fun, because if you're Merlin and you know who these bad people are, but you got to manipulate the game in such a way that you don't give yourself away. Uh, so yeah, right in the box, there's a bunch of more fun and complexity if you want it, or just play it, as is. All right, number 2 on the list, Ticket to Ride. Ticket to Ride is a very awesome game for the family. It's similar to Quicks in that it's such a light game. It allows a lot of table talk and community while the game's going on. What you have is these ticket cards that will say, "Oh, I have to go from Houston to Atlanta. I have to go to Memphis to New York," and throughout the map, there's little colors that connect, little railroads that connect from city to city, and they're different colors. So there might be a pink, a green, a black, a red, and the whole map is covered in these train tracks. And so what you're doing is on your turn, you're taking 2 cards. You can pick from the market, or you can pick a random face down card, and you're just trying to set collect. So you're like, okay, I see that from Houston to Tennessee, there's 4 black in a row. So if I collect 4 black cards on my turn, I can then put down the 4 black cards and put my colored train tracks on it. And you're just slowly trying to connect the little railroads to fulfill your tickets so that you could score points. And that's the game. You're just you're hanging out, you're laughing, you're trying to get the colors, and you're trying to get your sets collected. And then once you have enough of that color, you put your train down. Now the fun comes in is that no one knows where you're trying to go, and they have their own agenda. So if you know if everyone's trying to get into Dallas or to New York, you can start blocking each other off and cluttering the map. And you might have to think of creative workarounds or think of ways to like not really show where you're going, to be vague. And you also might want to try taking a risk at getting some more train cards towards the end of the game that maybe you already completed, so it's easier, or almost completed. But then if you don't complete them, they're minus points, so you want to be careful with that. There's a couple little other spices in there, but that's kind of the gist of the game. You're just taking cards, laying down train tracks, and trying to get points. Just an awesome game for sure. That's Ticket to Ride. Okay, guys, we're here. The number 1 gateway game of all time, according to me, of course. Now, if you're a gamer, you already guessed it. What haven't I said, you guys? Come on. All right, it's Pandemic. Of course, Pandemic. So, if you don't know what Pandemic is a cooperative game. That's the only co-op on the whole list. Look at that. So it's a cooperative game where you are, a medic, a specialist, a researcher, and you have your own little power. And on your turn, you have 4 action points to spend. Now, what's happening is there's red cubes, black cubes, blue cubes, and yellow cubes, which represent different diseases, and there's outbreaks going on. So at the start of the game, you have a world map, and randomly some cities will be infected. And as a team, you got to figure out how to contain the diseases, and everyone gets their 4 action points. So it's an action point to clean one cube off the disease, to move to the next city, etc. So you're going to spend your points kind of moving around, cleaning up the diseases, and the way you can find the cures, that's how you win. You got to find the four cures to the diseases is got a set collection element to it, where you have to collect 5 of the same colored card, turn it in at a research center, and then you've cured it. So what's difficult is it's hard to collect these cards, and let's say like I have 4 yellow cards and I'm trying to find that 5th yellow one. Well, I might have to make the decision to meet up with a teammate in that city so that they can pass me that 5th yellow that I need. So not only are you building research stations to travel faster and turn in, you're moving around the map, cleaning up and containing the diseases. You got all these things going on. The other thing about the game is that epidemics are going to happen where randomly at the bottom of the deck, you're going to pull a card and 3 cubes are going to come down. Then you're going to shuffle all the cards that have been revealed, shuffle them, place them on the top of the queue, and you'll start flipping from there. Now, when a city already has 3 cubes and you add one in, there's an outbreak. That disease will then spill over to the connecting cities. If you get 8 outbreaks, you lose. And if you run out of cubes of one color, you lose. That's how I lost last night. We had 2 outbreaks kind of next to each other, and they kept, boom, it was over. So the game is so fun. You can scale the difficulties. You can play with different characters that have different powers, and it's just got a lot of replayability. They also have tons of awesome expansions. So definitely check out Pandemic. So guys, thank you for hanging out with me in my top 10 gateway games. I think Luna wants to say something. No? Okay. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the list. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to hit me up in the comments. Leave me with your favorite gateway games. Feedback, everything is welcome. You guys have a great Sunday. Bye.